So last week, I started the series here on guarding our hearts, and I shared last week about the importance of guarding our hearts. This week, I want to go into the tools that we need to have with us, the things that we need to do to help us to guard our hearts. And the first thing I'd like to do is share a couple stories, and they may be very familiar stories to you based on the students that you work with and may have seen in your life. And the first one is the story of a young man who's highly active, probably on the spectrum of high ADHD, but without medication. I'm not a proponent necessarily of medication, but I'm also not saying that you shouldn't be on medication. What I'm saying is he's not on it, and so he has a very difficult time controlling his behaviors physically. He can't hardly even sit in a seat. You look at him, he's standing up, he's wallering all over it, he's getting up, at the lunchroom, he's going from table to table, constantly being reminded he needs to sit down, and it's not necessarily that he's even talking to anybody else, he's just up. So one day he misses school, and nobody's home. Nobody's home to bring him. Nobody's home to wake him up. So he gets an Uber to bring him to school. Pays the $10 out of his own money to get there. He gets to school, and what happens? His behavior ends up putting him in the office. Another story, another tiny tragic story, a sad story that is way too familiar. Is a young man that we have that is living with his mom, and his mom began to the point where she just didn't want him anymore, couldn't handle him. I get it. He wasn't an easy student. It wasn't an easy child, and I'm sure he wasn't easy at home. But Dad just gets out of jail. I hadn't been with Dad in quite a while. Dad gets out of jail, so she ships him off to Dad. Well, Dad doesn't want him. After about 30 days with Dad can't handle him, doesn't want him, and basically both of them give up on him. Luckily, he has a grandparent who steps up and says, "I'll take care of him." It's sad. But those are the things that our kids are coming to us and find it may be difficult to concentrate in school, and their behaviors may reflect their lack of feeling loved at home or any place else for that matter. And sometimes that obstinance, that resistance, that lack of doing work, there's all kinds of reason behind it. And it gets frustrating as a teacher because we don't always know those backstories, and even if we do, it's at a point it's like, how long do you make that excuse? So what we're trying to talk about, what I'm trying to talk about is how do we prevent our heart from hardening against stories like this, hardening against students who come to us in our classroom, or teachers who come to us, or colleagues who just constantly seem to have issues, and you have a difficult time getting along. And to me, it begins with the Bible school answer of prayer. It's very simple. It's prayer. Now, you maybe think that we need to pray for them, and that is awfully true. We do need to pray for them. The problem is, that's often where we stop. We want them to change. We want them to be more like us. We want them to develop a characteristic that makes them a lot more enjoyable for us to be around them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about praying for them that God may let them see His love and who through us. So in some sense, we're not necessarily even praying for them. We're praying for us, that our hearts don't get hardened, that our hearts don't get to a point where they're not willing to love this individual, that we pray to guard our hearts, that we pray to help us demonstrate God's love, to give us the words to say, the hugs to give, the notes to write, what exactly to do and say to encourage, to build this person up so that they may see God's love through us, and maybe plant some seeds of hope, some seeds of love. Seeds of knowing who God is. So I encourage you, first thing, protect our hearts from hardening is prayer. Prayer, yes, for that student or that colleague or somebody else in your life who's having those difficult times, who may have those struggles. Lift them up to God, but also pray that our hearts and our minds may be geared towards listening and hearing God, so He may use us to share His love, His mercy, His grace, just as He showered it on us, that He can shower it on them. Don't let your hearts be hardened, for it's a wellspring of life.